On this morning's edition of First Talk, the discussion kicked off with a deep dive into the Knicks' free agency approach, and the consensus was clear. Despite having little room to maneuver, New York is executing one of the most strategic off-seasons in the league. With the additions of Jordan Clarkson and Gerson Yabusele already locked in, the Knicks still have one more roster spot available, specifically saved for a veteran on a minimum deal. The show's panel praised Leon Rose for working the margins as well as anyone in the NBA. While the Knicks are restricted in who they can add due to cap constraints, that hasn't stopped them from finding high-level talent. And Gerson Yabusele is the perfect example of that. One of the most sought-after bigs in free agency, now headed to the Garden. According to the insiders at the table, New York managed to land Yabusele for just under the full taxpayer mid-level exception. What's notable here is how the Knicks outbid teams like the Sixers, who reportedly offered just $2.6 million, essentially a minimum deal. That kind of low-ball offer didn't stand a chance. The Knicks swooped in and got their guy. The move aligns with the bigger picture. This team isn't thinking about just making the playoffs, they're aiming higher. That's the reason Mike Brown is now the head coach. That's why they brought in Jordan Clarkson. That's why they pushed to get Yabusele. And that's why the front office continues to position themselves for one final move to round out the roster. Through restructuring Yabusele's contract and careful cap maneuvering, New York opened up a slot for another vet, a move orchestrated directly by Rose and the front office. It's clear something else is coming. While the rumors floating around suggest they may be targeting a veteran guard, the panel noted this could easily be misdirection. If opposing teams are focused on the Knicks chasing guards, that opens the door for New York to quietly explore wing options. And that brings us to the next part of the conversation. Viewers were asking the same question we've seen all over social media. Who's still out there that the Knicks could realistically sign to a vet minimum deal? The table pulled up the current free agent list, and the name at the top just might be a game changer. Back on First Talk, the conversation shifted to the one name that kept coming up again and again: Chris Boucher. According to the panel, if the Knicks managed to land Boucher on a veteran minimum deal, it would be one of the biggest steals of the entire offseason. He's versatile, athletic, and exactly the kind of piece New York needs backing up OG Anunoby. Yet for some reason, he's still unsigned, and that has Knicks fans and insiders scratching their heads. The message on the show was loud and clear. Leon Rose needs to make the call. Boucher isn't just a stopgap. He's a legit contributor who fits Mike Brown's new system perfectly. He gives you length, rim protection, shooting, and chemistry with current core players like OG. If New York doesn't take advantage of this opportunity, they might regret it later. But let's say, hypothetically, the Knicks decide not to go the wing route. What happens then? The First Talk panel went back to that free agent list and started weighing guard options. Russell Westbrook's name came up, even though his role in New York would likely be limited due to the depth at guard, the leadership, intensity, and playoff experience he brings can't be overlooked. Gary Payton, too, was also mentioned, an elite defender who can fit into multiple lineups. Amir Coffey was another intriguing name floated by the crew, especially for his size and flexibility on both ends of the court. And then the panel brought up a familiar face: Landry Shamet. Now, say what you want about Shamet, but once the Knicks started using him properly in the postseason, his value jumped off the screen. He hit timely threes, played underrated defense, and helped New York seal critical games down the stretch. Seth Curry was also a name that couldn't be ignored. The shooting is obviously elite, and while there are concerns about his size and defensive limitations, there's no question that Curry could give the Knicks a reliable spark off the bench when they need points in a hurry. The group on First Talk made one point very clear: if the Knicks can't land a big-bodied wing like Boucher, they need to pivot to a specialist who brings an elite skill, whether it's shooting, playmaking, or defense. And while the names vary in style, they all have something the Knicks could use next season. But timing is everything. Not only is it about fit and talent, it's also about availability and role. Many of these vets might pass on a minimum contract if it comes with limited playing time. That's why New York needs to strike fast before another team offers minutes and a clearer role. At the end of the day, the panel agreed. Chris Boucher is still the priority. But if that option disappears, Leon Rose needs to be ready with Plan B, whether that's Landry Shamet, Russell Westbrook, or someone else entirely. One thing's for sure, the Knicks aren't leaving that last roster spot empty. They're preparing to use it to complete their roster for what they believe could be a championship-contending season. And that wraps up another breakdown here on First Talk. Knicks fans, what do you think about the remaining free agent market? Should New York go all in on Boucher or pivot to one of these veteran guards? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget, like, subscribe, and stay locked in for all the latest Knicks updates. Until next time, take care of yourselves, your families, and of course, each other. Something massive is unfolding inside the Knicks organization, and it's not just about Mike Brown becoming the new head coach. Behind closed doors, roles are shifting, key names are being moved around, and there's serious buzz about a blockbuster plan that could bring Giannis Antetokounmpo to New York. Rick Brunson's role is being reduced, the coaching staff is being rebuilt from the ground up, and the front office is playing chess, not checkers. This isn't speculation. These are real moves, backed by real quotes, real source, and real strategy. From the press conference moments that flew under the radar to the silent power plays aimed directly at Milwaukee, everything we've learned tells one story. The Knicks are all in. You need to hear every piece of this. Let's break it all down right now. On today's NBA Today, the spotlight was on the New York Knicks as the panel dove into multiple updates regarding veteran talent potentially on the move, and how perfectly the timing lines up for the Knicks to make a move. With one final roster spot left open and new trade buzz heating up, this could be the window New York's front office has been waiting for. As I watched the segment, one thing was made clear. The Knicks are in prime position to land a seasoned vet they've had their eyes on for quite some time. And with recent developments, that dream might finally become a reality. According to the panel, after signing Gershon Yabusele using the non-taxpayer mid-level exception, New York still has room for a veteran minimum contract. And now, the name Marcus Smart has re-emerged, someone the Knicks were seriously targeting when he was in Memphis at the start of last season. At the time, though, the asking price was simply too high. Packaging Mitchell Robinson and Precious Achiuwa wasn't going to fly. But now, things might be changing. The Wizards have shown little traction in trade talks for Smart, and the market's starting to point toward a potential buyout. If that happens, Smart instantly becomes one of the most desirable names in the veteran market, and the Knicks could be first in line. The NBA Today team emphasized how Smart's $21.6 million expiring contract limits Washington's leverage, and teams like the Knicks, who were previously reluctant to pay a steep trade cost, would be eager to jump in if he hits free agency. The Wizards, for their part, have loaded up on veteran players, not necessarily for wins, but as steady voices to guide their younger core. Chris Middleton, C.J. McCollum, and Smart all sit on bigger expiring deals. And while the franchise values their present, a mid-season sell-off or wave of buyouts feels increasingly inevitable. And don't sleep on Washington's front office. The panel was unanimous on that. This is a smart, forward-thinking group. Even if the results haven't been flashy in the standings, the moves they've made behind the scenes have laid real groundwork for a solid rebuild. Back to Smart, the hosts made it clear New York's interest in him isn't new. According to insiders, this fascination goes back to the 2023 offseason. And if he hits the market now on a minimum deal, there's a strong belief the Knicks would prioritize him as the final piece to round out the roster. Defensively, Smart still brings elite-level energy. The former DPOY averaged 9 points, 2 rebounds, and 3 assists last season, with a steal per game, shooting 40% from the floor and 35% from deep. He's a grinder. He plays bigger than his size, and he thrives in high-pressure situations. Now, yes, this interest did start under Tom Thibodeau's leadership, But even with Mike Brown now in charge, the panel believes there's enough overlap in the Knicks' defensive philosophy to keep Smart in their sight. As one panelist joked, the final puzzle piece might just be waiting for a buyout. A potential backcourt duo of Smart and Brunson could bring balance, allowing Brunson to focus more on offense, while Smart handles tough defensive assignments and secondary ball handling. That said, the team also noted that New York still lacks reliable floor spacing. So while Smart's value is clear, they might be better off targeting a shooter. And that's where the conversation started to shift, especially when we talk about the Wizards again. As the NBA Today segment continued, the conversation shifted toward another intriguing trade candidate out of Washington, Corey Kispert. According to insiders, Kispert's name has gained traction following the Wizards' recent acquisition of Cam Whitmore, a move that signals a growing wing rotation and less room for Kispert to flourish in a major role. Kispert's contract is a notable detail here. He's locked into a team-friendly deal through the 2028-29 season, including a team option with an average of just $13.6 million per year. While affordable, his production hasn't quite matched expectations. The NBA Today panel pointed out that Kispert was drafted as a sharpshooter, yet last season he only shot 36.4% from three and a concerning 37% from the corner, numbers that are underwhelming for a player known primarily for perimeter efficiency. The Knicks have long been linked to Kispert, and that buzz is still there. According to the discussion, he's the type of big guard with shooting upside that New York has sought in recent years, even if his recent form hasn't fully delivered on that promise. One panelist noted a post circulating from Wizards fans, suggesting that Kispert could be flipped to the Knicks in exchange for removing protections on the Wizards' first-round pick owed to New York. That pick, top 8 protected for next season, likely won't convey, unless Washington makes a surprising leap out of the bottom tier of the standings. It's a smart angle, trading Kispert now while recouping full control of their draft capital. But from New York's perspective, it's far from a straightforward move. Here's the catch. Kispert's salary complicates things. The panel discussed that bringing him in would likely require moving Mitchell Robinson in the deal or attaching multiple assets, which could hurt the team's balance and flexibility. Not to mention, it would limit the Knicks to just 13 active roster spots, creating more roster headaches than value. That's why, despite some interest, Kispert feels like a long shot. The Knicks have tracked him for a while, even during his draft process, but the logistics today don't add up. Still, it's clear he remains on their radar. That brings us back to Marcus Smart. Among the panelists, there was agreement that Smart is the more realistic acquisition. His playoff experience, toughness, and leadership check a lot of boxes. He's not a perfect fit, but he represents the kind of win-now player that matches the Knicks' current competitive window. Yet even with Smart, there are questions. With Brunson locked in as the primary guard and Clarkson likely to have a major role, it's hard to see where Smart would start. The shooting guard slot is crowded with Mikal Bridges, and behind them are guys like Deuce McBride and Rokas Jokubaitis waiting in the wing. Could Smart function as a small wing at 6'3"? Maybe, but it's far from ideal. That's where the conversation turned again. One analyst said, "It sounds good on paper, but in practice it could create a real logjam." The panel floated names like Landry Shamet, not as physical or gritty as Smart, but a purer shooter who might fill New York's biggest hole, perimeter scoring. In the end, the consensus was clear. While Smart brings hustle and intensity, what the Knicks really need is someone who can space the floor. Another tough defender isn't a priority. The next addition has to be someone who can hit shots. Plain and simple. The hosts wrapped that segment by inviting fans to weigh in. What do you think, Knicks fan? Who's the better fit, Smart or a shooter like Shamet? Either way, it's clear that New York's front office is still evaluating every angle as they look to fill that final roster spot the right way. On today's edition of First Talk, the conversation quickly shifted to New York, where Mike Brown is now officially taking the reins as head coach of the Knicks. And according to the panel, this hiring is already making waves. not just for what it means on the court, but for what it reveals about the organization's future, particularly in relation to franchise star Jalen Brunson. The panel emphasized that Brown's introductory press conference was textbook Leon Rose, vague, composed, and tight-lipped. One host pointed out that Brown didn't give much away, and that was by design. It's clear he's aligned with Rose's front office philosophy: play your cards close, avoid headlines, and keep long-term intentions under wraps. That sort of messaging has become a hallmark of the Knicks' leadership. Still, there were a few key takeaways about how the coaching staff will be shaped under Brown. According to the insiders on the show, Brown has already begun outlining plans with Leon Rose to construct a revamped staff. And while no names have been finalized, there's one major shakeup already drawing attention. A report from Stefan Bondy, cited live during the show, revealed that Rick Brunson, longtime assistant and father of Jalen Brunson, is expected to see his role scaled back. The Knicks reportedly intend to bring in a new associate head coach, reducing Rick's influence on the bench. The First Talk crew didn't shy away from the implication. One host noted that this move gives Brown more control over the staff and addresses growing concerns around perceived conflicts of interest. Last season, some league observers were wary of having the team's top assistant be the father of the franchise player. Now, with Brown in charge, it's clear those optics won't be allowed to persist. That said, no one on the panel believed there was actual tension in the locker room. They emphasized the tight bond between Jalen Brunson and teammates like Josh Hart and Mikal Bridges, guys who've known Rick Brunson for years. Hart even had Rick on his podcast and referred to him fondly. So, from a chemistry standpoint, this shift in the coaching structure isn't expected to rock the boat. What did stand out, though, was Brown's calm but assertive presence. The panel mentioned that when things got heated during the 2023 playoffs, particularly with Obi Toppin voicing his frustrations about playing time, it was Rick Brunson, not Tom Thibodeau, who stepped into the fray. That fiery loyalty was a big part of his role under Thibs. But now, with Brown running the show, it looks like the dynamic is about to change. On First Talk, the panel continued its deep dive into the Knicks' coaching transition, highlighting the long-standing connection between Rick Brunson and former head coach Tom Thibodeau. One of the hosts pointed out that, for nearly 2 decades, Brunson and Thibs have practically been joined at the hip in the NBA, dating all the way back to the early Bulls years. Aside from a lone season in Denver back in 2006-2007, Brunson has almost always been on a bench with Thibodeau, including the 2010-2011 season when Derrick Rose won MVP. That tight bond has defined much of Brunson's coaching career, but this upcoming season is going to mark a clear break from that tradition. For the first time in almost 20 years, Rick Brunson will be part of a coaching staff that doesn't include Tom Thibodeau. And while he'll still remain with the Knicks, his role is shifting. Mike Brown is now in charge, and he's being given the freedom to shape things his way. The hosts agreed. Credit to Leon Rose and the front office for allowing Brown to lead without interference. According to the panel, collaboration was a top priority in the Knicks' coaching search, and Brown seems to be embracing that spirit fully. He even stated publicly that building a cohesive staff would be a process, one he's already begun with Rose. An anonymous Knicks official reportedly told the New York Post that this restructuring is what's best for the team and the players. Though the exact source wasn't confirmed, the panel acknowledged there's clearly some internal friction over how much influence Rick Brunson has held, in part because of his relationship with his son, star point guard Jalen Brunson. And that's the tricky part. Jalen Brunson isn't just the team's captain. He's arguably already a top 5 Knick in franchise history. As one panelist said bluntly, you just don't want to upset that guy. After all, this is the same player who left $13 million on the table in his contract extension to help the team build a stronger roster. His unselfishness and elite-level production have put the Knicks in their best position to win a title since the 1990s. But Rick Brunson's growing sway in the organization hasn't been universally loved. While some within the Knicks see his presence as natural, others view it as problematic. Still, the hosts made it clear they don't believe players like Josh Hart, or Mikal Bridges, both close with Jalen and longtime acquaintances of Rick, have any real issue with him. Hart, for example, even featured Rick Brunson on his podcast and referred to him with genuine affection. What's more compelling, however, is who might be coming in. The panel brought up veteran assistant coach Phil Handy, a name connected to the Knicks in recent report. Handy, who previously worked alongside Mike Brown in both Cleveland and Los Angeles, is said to be on New York's radar. And for good reason. He's got 3 championship rings and a reputation as one of the league's most respected development minds. If the Knicks open the checkbook, as they're known to do, this could be a huge get for Brown's new staff. Finally, the panel turned the discussion back to Jalen Brunson. With Rick Brunson potentially moving into a smaller role, all eyes are on how that might impact the Knicks' floor general. But Brown doesn't appear worried. In his presser, he called Brunson the kind of player who allows a team to play every style imaginable. Though, that flexibility, paired with Brunson's incredible playoff resume, 30 points, 7 assists, and 4 boards per game across 42 postseason contests, makes him the perfect centerpiece for what Brown wants to build. On today's First Talk, the panel explored how Mike Brown's offensive philosophy could dramatically enhance Jalen Brunson's game, even while Rick Brunson steps into a less prominent role. One of the analysts pointed out that for the first time in his career, Mike Brown is fully implementing a fast-paced system, one built around transition play and ball movement. And with someone like Jalen Brunson at the helm, the fit could be seamless. Brunson has always thrived in transition and, surprisingly, is one of the better spot-up shooters in the league, despite rarely getting those opportunities in New York's previous isolation-heavy offense. With Brown now emphasizing constant ball movement and a more open, dynamic pace, similar to Steve Kerr's system in Golden State, we may finally see Brunson operating off-ball more frequently, getting clean looks, and showcasing his shooting touch in a way Knicks fans haven't seen before. Even though Rick Brunson is being moved into a secondary role on the bench, one panelist said it feels like a promotion by proxy for Jalen. Mike Brown's vision clearly prioritizes Brunson's strengths, and giving him the chance to play in a more fluid offense could unlock a new level in his game. That, more than anything, might lead to more wins for this squad. Rick isn't leaving the organization. He's still part of the staff, and his influence remains. But Brown is drawing a clear line and asserting control. The panel noted that this shift was a natural evolution, and all parties involved seem to understand the direction the Knicks are heading. Then came a critical point in the discussion: Phil Handy. The Knicks have their sights set on strengthening the bench further. While Jordi Fernandez might be their first choice, the panelists emphasized that Handy is not just a fallback. He's a top-tier option in his own right. With 3 NBA championships under his belt and prior experience working with Mike Brown, he's a perfect fit if the Knicks can pull it off. The discussion then pivoted toward a major development, reports hinting that the Knicks may be setting the stage for a blockbuster trade. One panelist revealed that, behind the scenes, New York has been laser-focused on one superstar, Giannis Antetokounmpo. The Knicks' recent silence on the trade front hasn't been accidental. It's strategic. They've been quietly holding onto assets, preparing for the possibility of a Giannis trade request out of Milwaukee. According to NBA insider Steve Popper, that's why the Knicks passed on pursuing LeBron James and other stars. They're saving their chips for Giannis. And while salary cap constraints may limit the appeal of big contracts, New York still has valuable trade pieces and picks to offer. Karl Anthony Towns' name has been floated as a potential stepping stone, but the panel agreed the Knicks are playing the long game, and Giannis is the end goal. But here's the twist. The Knicks aren't just waiting. According to the panel, they're actively trying to lure a key Bucks assistant away from Milwaukee, a tactical move designed to make New York even more appealing to Giannis. The thinking is clear. Build the environment he wants, stack the coaching staff with familiar faces, and make it as easy as possible for him to say, "I want out, and I want New York." This is shaping up to be a high-stakes off-season chess match, and the Knicks are preparing their best play yet. On today's First Talk, the panel took a deep dive into what could be a major behind-the-scenes move by the Knicks. an attempt to poach one of Milwaukee's top assistants, Darvin Ham, and bring him into Mike Brown's new coaching staff in New York. Now, according to NBA insider Mark Stein, who's always tapped into the coaching carousel, both the Suns and Knicks have expressed serious interest in bringing Ham aboard. This comes just after Mike Brown's official introduction as head coach in New York, so the timing isn't a coincidence. Here's the key detail. Ham, after 2 seasons leading the Lakers, is currently back in Milwaukee, working under Doc Rivers, and is considered his top assistant. And as Stein puts it, this would technically be a lateral move for Ham unless he's offered a head coaching job, which neither Phoenix nor New York are currently offering. Still, the Knicks' interest is real, and so is their pursuit. So, why go after Ham? That's what the First Talk panel asked next. Sure, he's a well-respected basketball mind. That alone would justify the interest. But the deeper reason? His close, personal bond with Giannis Antetokounmpo. This is where things get interesting. One panelist broke it down. Darvin Ham formed a tight connection with Giannis during their earlier time together in Milwaukee. In fact, it was reportedly Giannis himself who had a say in bringing Ham back to the Bucks as a lead assistant just this past season. Giannis was thrilled when Ham landed the Lakers job, even saying publicly it was about time he got that opportunity. That kind of public support says a lot. So, let's connect the dots. The Knicks are trying to bring in someone that Giannis already trusts, someone with deep ties to the superstar. This isn't just about improving the coaching staff. This is about making the Knicks more attractive to one specific player, Giannis. The panel agreed. New York isn't wasting time with rumors about other stars. They passed on LeBron James. They didn't pursue Kevin Durant. Because this front office, Leon Rose especially, is laser-focused on one goal: prepare for the chance to trade for Giannis if he becomes available. They're quietly keeping their assets intact. They're not moving players just for the sake of action. They want to win now, yes, but also be fully armed for a blockbuster move if Milwaukee's franchise player signals he's ready to go. And if that happens, you can bet New York will be one of the first teams on the phone. As for Ham, the panel emphasized this again. He's not a throw-in. Even if this wasn't connected to Giannis at all, he'd still be a valuable addition. But the fact that it is connected, that just raises the stakes. This isn't just a coaching hire, it's part of a larger plan. To wrap up the segment, the hosts referenced an interaction between a Knicks fan and Mike Brown himself. After bumping into the coach in the airport, the fan asked straight up, "Are we getting Giannis or LeBron?" Brown laughed and said, "I'm not trading my wings." Now, that may sound vague, but let's read between the lines here. When Brown says he won't move his wings, he's talking about guys like Josh Hart, Mikal Bridges, and OG Anunoby, the core wing defenders on this roster. What he didn't say was more telling. He didn't rule out a Giannis trade. He just made it clear who he'd like to keep. That tells us everything we need to know. The Knicks are gearing up for something major, and whether it's tomorrow or 6 months from now, they're putting the pieces in place today. Continuing the conversation on First Talk, the hosts shifted focus back to the Knicks' pursuit of Giannis Antetokounmpo, and the message couldn't be clearer. It's Giannis or nothing. If New York does pull off a blockbuster trade for the Greek Freak, certain names are reportedly off-limit. According to insiders, players like Josh Hart, Mikal Bridges, and OG Anunoby are not going anywhere. Mike Brown himself hinted at that in passing, saying he's not trading his wing. See? So, if a deal goes down, expect the Knicks to pivot toward other assets, possibly even including someone like Karl Anthony Towns, depending on what kind of package the Bucks would demand. The panel emphasized that the recent flurry of moves coming out of New York all seem to trace back to one goal: creating the perfect environment to lure Giannis to Madison Square Garden. One of those chess moves, trying to snag Darvin Ham from Milwaukee's bench and bring him to New York. That's not just bold, that's a high-level strategy from Leon Rose and his front office. It's clear this isn't about loading up on superstars just for the sake of headlines. The Knicks have turned down names like LeBron and KD in the past. Why? Because their focus has always been fixed on one target, Giannis. That mindset hasn't changed. They're not interested in splashing assets on any star that isn't wearing number 34 in Milwaukee. The First Talk panelists applauded the Knicks for this level of long-term planning. On one hand, they're trying to improve the team now. On the other, they're also preserving the flexibility to strike the second Giannis becomes available. If that moment comes, you better believe New York will be one of the first teams on the line, phones blazing, offers ready. And if you still need more proof of how calculated this pursuit is, just look at their interest in Darvin Ham. He's not just a respected coach, he's someone Giannis personally vouched for. And if the Knicks can get someone like that in their coaching room, it adds another layer to their recruitment pitch. To wrap up this segment, the hosts turn to the fan. What do you make of all these signals coming from the Knicks? Is this a smart way to build toward a potential franchise-changing trade? Or should they be focusing more on improving the team now? Regardless, the Knicks have shown their hand, and they're playing the long game. And with Giannis in their sights, every move they make could be part of a much bigger picture. Back on First Talk, the conversation turned toward what kind of offensive system Mike Brown is planning to run with this new-look Knicks roster. And let's just say, he's got a vision, and he's not holding back. You could see it on his face during the press conference. Brown didn't reveal everything, but you could tell he knows exactly where this group can improve and where they can thrive. There's excitement, but also confident. He's not here to maintain the status quo, he's here to upgrade it. The panel pointed to a quote from the New York Post's Zach Braziller, who shared some of Brown's thoughts on the team's depth, specifically new additions Jordan Clarkson and Gershon Yabusele. According to Brown, the versatility on this roster is off the charts. Clarkson brings veteran presence, scoring at all three levels, and underrated playmaking. Brown emphasized how much he values driving into the paint and kicking out for easy looks, and Clarkson fits that mold perfectly. As for Yabusele, Brown called him an exceptional young man who brings size, flexibility, and positional range. He might slot in at the 4, the 5, and possibly even the 3. That's the type of roster versatility Brown wants to leverage to push the tempo and space the floor. Shifting gears to the system itself, SNY's Ian Begley reported that Brown doubled down on his signature approach: fast-paced, high-energy basketball. He stated clearly, "Everyone knows I like to play fast." And having someone like Jalen Brunson as the engine, that's the ideal scenario. Brunson's ability to adapt, to play in different styles and tempos, gives Brown the flexibility to experiment and keep defenses on their heels. Then came the soundbite that really got Knicks fans buzzing. Brown didn't sugarcoat it. He laid out his long-term vision in plain words, and the panel made sure to highlight every syllable. Brown said, "Our goal, from Leon Rose to the players to the fans, is to build a sustainable winning culture that produces championships. That's why I'm here." That line landed hard. Brown continued by stressing the importance of hard work, commitment, and staying focused on the present. He said he knows what it takes to succeed, and now his job is to instill that winning mindset into every corner of the Knicks organization. Then, he took it a step further. Brown said the heart of the culture he wants to build will be rooted in trust. Trust formed through sacrifice, connection, and belief in one another and the process. That's the foundation championship teams are built on. The First Talk crew agreed. It's rare for a coach to come in and speak this clearly about changing the soul of a franchise. It's not just about drawing up plays or managing rotations. Mike Brown wants to shift the entire atmosphere, the entire identity of this team. And that starts with the player, but it extends all the way to the front office. And yes, the fans. One panelist put it best: when your head coach says, "That's why I'm here," and he means building a culture that breeds championships, you listen and you believe him. To close out today's First Talk, the crew dove into Mike Brown's latest statements, and they pulled no punches. If there was any uncertainty about the kind of leader the Knicks are getting, it's been erased. Mike Brown said it himself. He's not just here to coach, he's here to win. And what stood out wasn't just the words, but the emotion behind them. One of the hosts brought up a direct quote from Brown's press conference, where he spoke with clarity about what drew him to New York. "I'm passionate about this game. I want to win. I want to be in a place that thinks like I do," Brown said. He talked about his connection with Leon Rose, a relationship that's been built over time, and how that trust helped make his decision easy. "When I spoke to Leon, when I spoke to Mr. Dolan, it all just clicked," Brown added. That moment told the panel everything. The bond with Leon isn't just professional, it's personal, and that's important, especially in a city where pressure defines the job. Brown even joked about the move, saying, "We better relocate to New York. I'm a foodie." A light moment, but one that showed just how comfortable he already feels, embracing the New York lifestyle. And that dynamic between Brown, Leon Rose, and James Dolan, it's already revealing a lot. Brown referred to Leon by his first name repeatedly, but when Dolan came up, it was Mr. Dolan. That might seem small, but it says a lot. Leon's the one in the trenches, the day-to-day voice in Brown's ear. He's the guy helping shape the Knicks' future. As one of the analysts pointed out, Brown didn't just take this job for the paycheck. He took it because he wants this pressure. He embraces the spotlight, and in New York, there's no bigger one. From everything Brown's said so far, it's clear he sees this opportunity as more than just coaching a team. He's here to shift the culture, set a new tone, and finally elevate this franchise to where it's supposed to be, contending for championships. And let's be real, if you're someone who thrives under pressure, who loves competition, who lives for the challenge, there's no bigger stage than Madison Square Garden. Mike Brown knows that. And according to the panel, that's exactly why he's the right guy for this moment. So now the spotlight shifts from the front office to the floor. Brown's message is clear. The expectations are high, the culture is changing, and the mission? Win, plain and simple. That wraps up this edition of First Talk. Knicks fans, as always, stay locked in, take care of yourselves and your people, and we'll see you next time.